Okay, so welcome back. It's now time to start talking about the wives of the king and what they had to do during the horse sacrifice. Again, I want to remind you that we're looking at this not to sensationalize or sexualize Hinduism or to kind of criticize what might seem to us like a crude or maybe even primitive thing to do. It's totally reasonable to be kind of shocked and startled by what we're about to see outside the window. And we might be puzzled by why it's there. But let's keep in mind that it was a very rare and extreme ritual, and it was shocking even then, back then, to the practitioners in the ancient past. And also remember that mainstream Hindus today don't perform the Ashvamedha, and most don't even know about these procedures. So I do want to urge that as we talk about it and discuss it in a mature and respectful way, we resist in comparing it to our own beliefs and practices today and criticizing it in that way, casting judgment on it. So anyway, what did the queens have to do? Well, there's two controversial things here. One, the chief queen, who's known as the Mahishi, or the female water buffalo, she had to engage in some seemingly sexualized actions with the dead horse's penis. Second thing was that the other wives of the king had to carry on some obscene back and forth verbal taunting with the priests who were conducting the ritual. Stephanie Jameson points out in her essay that these words and actions don't seem to have been symbolic, meaning that the text is pretty graphic and detailed about what the women exactly had to do. And the obscene actions and words that the queens have to say and do during this whole sacrifice are unparalleled in the rest of the Vedic tradition. For the most part, these rituals are solemn, serious, and definitely not sexualized. Now, if we want to understand why the wives would be asked to do this, maybe we can follow Stephanie Jameson's comment where she says, quote, "This was not a freakish and aberrant spectacle, as is sometimes presented, but the logical, if extreme, fulfillment of a woman's function in ritual." This function, according to Jameson, is to be an embodiment of the sacrificer's domestic sphere, his home and hearth. And so her body acts as a receptacle for accepting the fertility benefits, the fertility quotient that the various Vedic ceremonies generated. If the sacrificer is looking for children, the Vedic ritual can help by enhancing his wife's fertility, basically. In most Vedic rituals, this is a symbolic idea. It's not something that's consciously expressed. But in the horse sacrifice, it's presented at a stark level so that it's basically obscene. At the same time, it wasn't meant to be lurid and certainly not pornographic. No one was getting off on this stuff, right? Now let's see how it goes step by step. So after the horse is strangulated, the wives are brought in by the priests in a kind of dance procession. He leads up the king's wives, saying, "Mother, little mother, dear little mother." "No one is leading me," says one woman. Then he summons them, and thus he makes them fit for the sacrifice, saying, "We call on you, Indra, leader of the hosts of hosts." The wives walk around the horse and thus make amends to him, and they also make amends to him by fanning him. The text now creates some of those bandhu connections again to explain why the queens have to dance around him, making their actions take on a bigger significance than just this dance. They walk around him 3 times, for there are 3 worlds, and they fan him with these 3 worlds. They walk around him 3 times more, which makes 6, for there are 6 seasons, and they fan him with the seasons. But the vital breaths go out of those who perform the fanning of the sacrifice. 9 times they walk around him, for there are 9 vital breaths. Thus they place their vital breaths in themselves, and the vital breaths do not go out of them. So the queens then channel this kind of newfound vitality that they have in a different direction. They say, I will urge the one who places the embryo. You urge the one who places the embryo. Now the embryo means progeny in animals, thus she places progeny in animals in herself. It's an odd statement, right? But what could it mean? What does this stuff mean? Well, one way to think about it maybe is that the queen represents more than just a physical person here, but stands for the whole kingdom, the land, the wealth, the prosperity, the citizens, right? So she's not just making herself fertile, but kind of making the whole kingdom fertile, making it productive. Let's see what happens next. A cloth, an upper cloth, and gold is what they spread out for the horse, and on that they quiet him. When the sacrificial animals have been quieted, the king's wives come up with water for washing the feet. 4 wives, and a maiden as the 5th, and 400 women attendants. Now is when things are going to start getting serious here. When the water for washing the feet is ready, the priests make the chief queen, the Mahishi, lie down next to the horse, and they cover the 2 of them up with that upper cloth, as they say the verse, let the 2 of us cover ourselves in the world of heaven. For the world of heaven is where they quiet the sacrificial animal. Then they draw out the penis of the horse and place it in the vagina of the chief queen, while she says, may the vigorous virile male, the layer of seed, lay the seed. This she says for sexual intercourse. Okay. While they are lying there, the sacrificer insults the horse by saying, lift up her thighs and put it in her rectum. No one insults the sacrificer back, lest there should be someone to act as a rival against the sacrificer. This whole shocking scene with what the wife says, what the husband says for the horse to do, the whole bestial aspect of what they're talking about, seems to kind of just come out of nowhere, right? In this ritual, it doesn't stop there. The ritual now calls for a few rounds of obscene sexual banter and taunting, really, between the other wives of the king and the chief priests who are all doing the sacrifice. The Advaryu official then insults the maiden. Hey maiden, the little female bird. And she insults him back. Hey efficient, that little bird. This little bird, Stephanie Jameson translates it as birdykins. It's probably slang words, I think, for genitalia. We don't really know for sure. Then the overseer, the Brahman, insults the chief queen. Hey chief queen, your mother and father climbed to the top of a tree. She has her attendants 100 daughters of kings. They insult the overseer in return. Hey overseer, your mother and your father play in the top of the tree. Then the Udgatar, the cantor, insults the king's favorite wife. Hey favorite wife, raise her up erect. She has her attendants, 100 royal women. They insult the cantor in return. Hey cantor, raise him up erect. Then the invoker, the hotar, insults the rejected wife. Hey rejected wife, when inside her tight crack. Now she has as her attendants 100 daughters of bards and village headmen. They insult the invoker in return. Hey invoker, when the gods see that miserable penis. All this dirty business just keeps going. The carver, the kshatar, insults the 4th wife. Hey fourth wife. When the deer eats the barley, the farmer does not hope to nourish the animal. This priest is basically laughing at the fact that the king is encouraging the horse to sleep with the queen here. Now she has as her attendants 100 daughters of carvers and charioteers. They insult the carver in return. Hey carver, When the deer eats the barley, the farmer does not hope to nourish the animal. Maybe I should give a couple of comments about this kind of weird back and forth, you know, kind of insulting that the priests and the queens are doing to each other. For one, you'll notice that the lines are all abbreviated. We don't get the full sentences. This is because they're quotations actually from the Yajurveda Samhita, so the priests are expected to already have them memorized. The Brahmana text just gives a kind of abbreviated quote. It's like in a blog where it says read more, right? It's like that. And the priests have to fill in the rest from their own memory since they've memorized it. The second is that all of the things that they're saying, these insults, they're supposed to be puzzles or kind of verbal riddles. Actually, the priests are taunting the wives about sex, right? The wives are returning the taunt and making the men feel like uncomfortable and kind of inadequate about sex. Anyway, so let's see how all this dirty business of penises and all this obscenity ends. These insulting speeches, says the text, are for all kinds of attainment, for through the horse sacrifice all desires are achieved, thinking, with all kinds of speech we will achieve all kinds of desires. The priests make the chief queen get up. Then the women walk back the way they came, and the others utter at the end a sweet smelling verse, the verse that begins with I praise the Dhikravan, for the lifespan and the gods go out of those who speak impure speech in the sacrifice. Thus, they purify their speech to keep the gods from going out of the sacrifice. So there you have it, the horse sacrifice. There's a horse, penis, a lot of dirty talk, and all within this kind of solemn, sanctified setting of a Vedic ritual. We should, of course, try to figure out what might have been going on here, why all this is happening. But before we get there, maybe we also need to go and purify our speech. Maybe have a nice, long, cold glass of water before we come back and talk about all this, what all this might have meant to people back then and there in that late Vedic period. So, see you in a bit. नयन विरसं नर्मसु